put together some of these valve bodies to do a quick external way to identify the attributes between the 6L45, 6L50, 6L80 valve bodies. And I'll post this on our website under the resources tab so that you can download a PDF file of this. So we're going to start over here with the 6L45 valve body. Now, what they're supposed to do to help identify this is the post labeled A should be ground flat for the 6L45. For the 6L50, the letter B post should be ground flat. And for the 6L80, it's supposed to be the letter C post ground flat. And for the 6L90, the letter D post should be ground flat. However, many times you may find that not a one of these tabs will be ground flat. So now you have to identify these valve bodies a different way, and it's critical. First being, we could look at the speed sensor mounting pads or pedestals. The 6L45 uses the pedestal for both speed sensors. Same with the 6L50. Now the 6L80 has a mounting pad. Here is where the locating tab would fit, right in the middle of the locating tab towards the front of the transmission, with the retaining bolt screw also in the middle of the mounting pad. And over here with the 6L90, you'll notice that it's more towards the rear of the transmission. So these are ways to identify this. But more importantly, we want to look at where the feed holes are. And for the 6L45 and the 6L50, they are down the middle of the pad. Whereas with the 6L80, we're towards the front of the transmission, and with the 6L90, we're towards the rear of the transmission. So these are various ways that we can identify these valve bodies by looking at these physical attributes. Now, another way to determine whether you have an early valve body or a late valve body is by these exhaust ports here. This is your 3.5 reverse regulator valve. This is your 2.6 regulator valve, and they have an exhaust port for the early models. For the late models, they close them off. Now, what these exhaust ports are, they're at the back end of these valves. When these valves are not in regulation, pressure is sent to a pressure switch to close the pressure switch, and they're normally closed pressure switches, so with pressure there, it'll open. When the valve goes into regulation, the oil that's going to the pressure switch now exhausts out of these ports, and then when they close, they let the computer know that the 3.5 reverse valve is in regulation or the 2.6 valve is in regulation. Well, when they closed these ports off, all they did was relocate where that exhaust takes place. When you come over here and look at the late model valve body, here is the regulating valves. We have the 3.5 reverse regulating valve here, the 2.6 regulating valve here. And these ports, as you can see, are connected together. This is the port that sends oil to the respective pressure switches. This is pressure switch 1 for the 3.5 reverse. This is pressure switch 3 for the 2.6. And so they actually have that circuit here. When it goes into exhaust, it will then connect through the spacer plate and it will exhaust out of this slot here. So that's how you can tell the differences between early and late valve bodies and where the exhausts are taking place for those pressure switches. Now, when it comes to the spacer plates, we have two designed spacer plates for the early valve body that has the exhaust ports. This is the very early spacer plate with no identification notches. And then we have this spacer plate. It's, again, this is a early 7-ball spacer plate. And they made changes to the spacer plate, particularly with the number 7 check ball feed. They enlarged it. They made changes to the pressure control solenoid feed for the 1, 2, 3, 4. They made compensator feed calibration changes in the spacer plate and exhaust backfill. And so these can only be used with the valve body that has the exhaust located in the back of the channel plate. When it comes to the newer valve body, this is the 7-ball spacer plate for the late model. But when they added another ball, the number 8 ball, this is the 8-ball spacer plate, where they closed this hole down. This was originally 171 thousandths. They closed it down to 41 thousandths to use that extra number 8 ball, which is used from a smooth transition from engine braking first gear to a non-engine braking first gear. They orifice the exhaust on the low reverse clutches. And so these plates will not work, obviously, on the early model valve body. These are only to be used for the late model valve bodies. And again, these are for just the early valve bodies.
Thank you for watching. For all confirmed fix videos and unlimited technical support, become an ATSG member, your transmission tech solution. Click the membership link below.